All right, guys, this is going to get a little graphic, so I'm just going to prepare you for it, and I'm going to, ramble for another 5-10 seconds. If you got kids in the room, you need to remove them. President Obama does not have testicular fortitude when it comes to dealing with the Republicans. Translation, President Obama doesn't have a pair of balls. This man came into office under the mistaken assumption that the Republicans were going to play nice with him. We're going to start singing Kumbaya, let us all come together. He found out fairly quickly that that wasn't in fact the case. But let me ask you a question. What actually has President Obama actually fought for? His first 2 years, he didn't have to fight for the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. That was Pelosi and Harry Reid doing all the fighting over that in order to get that through. He didn't fight for immigration reform, criminal justice reform, various other things. I can't, and I've asked other people the same question, and maybe he has, but off the top of our heads, we cannot think of a single thing that Barack Obama has actually fought for. Now, when I say that he doesn't have a pair of balls, that may not necessarily be true. I can think of one time that he actually fucked somebody. And that particular time was when he went to Flint, Michigan, when all of those people, and that is obviously a largely black community, he went to Flint, Michigan, after all of the bullshit was going on, and he went in there and had one of his aides go out and get him a glass of water that was supposedly out of the Flint water system. Now, we don't know whether that guy went and got some bottled water and poured it in there and that was bullshit or not, but the net effect was that he was telling the country that there was no longer a problem in Flint, Michigan. And that was one of the biggest lies out there. But it had the effect of taking the spotlight and the focus away from Flint, Michigan. There were no more stories that were done after that. So, rightfully so, the people of Flint and the people of Detroit, all right, because, they felt an affinity for the people of Flint. They felt like they had been betrayed by Barack Obama, and they were. And no more stories, no more focus on Flint. To this day, those pipes are still all fucked up. They felt that they were abandoned. And you wonder why black people didn't turn out? Well, there's probably your number one reason, because they felt that Obama was all about himself, crying about voting for him in order to protect his legacy. That was the last thing he should have said. He should have pointed out all of the things that he had done and pointed out what the people were going to lose, not the fact that his legacy was going to be hurt. President Obama needed to stay off of TV, but no, all about him again. Yesterday, he gave a 45-minute press conference, questions and answers, so that when he took his trip overseas to Greece, Germany, and I guess down here to Peru, that he wouldn't have to face all of the domestic questions. And he proceeded to make a total ass out of himself, again showing no balls. But the net effect of that press conference was to give Donald Trump a chance. Fuck Donald Trump. Okay? When he had that meeting with Donald Trump at the White House, it was supposed to be a 15-minute meeting. That's how long that meeting should have lasted. 15 minutes. It wasn't his job to try to tutor Donald Trump, okay, on all of the ins and the outs of the White House, okay, and on his policy positions, both domestic and foreign. Donald Trump's going to do whatever Donald Trump is going to do. But it seemed to me like President Obama went in there and took all that extra time, basically getting on his knees about trying to protect some of his, his pet policies like Obamacare and DACA and his executive orders. That's what it seems like to me. Anyway, here's Don Lemon's bit regarding Obama.
Americans to give the president-elect a chance.
I don't think he is ideological. I think ultimately he's pragmatic in that way, and that can serve him well as long as he's got good people around him and he has a clear sense of direction.
I want to begin this hour with CNN White House correspondent Athena Jones. Athena, good evening to you. You were at the president's press conference today, the first since Donald Trump won the election. What's your takeaway?
I thought it was interesting, Don, how much time the president spent talking about what he views as some of his administration's biggest achievements. He spent almost as much time reminding viewers about those accomplishments as he did trying to, it seemed like, ease the concerns of people who did not support Donald Trump. And that clip you just played, I thought, was also an interesting takeaway. The president spoke quite a bit about that meeting he had with President-elect Trump last week in the Oval Office. They sat down and talked for an hour and a half. And his takeaway was that Trump, as you played, is not ideological, that he's pragmatic in a way that could serve him well if he has good people around him and a clear sense of direction. Well, today I asked President Obama about one of the people that Trump has around him, a person he has tapped to be a chief strategist and a senior advisor in his White House, and that is Steve Bannon, the former head of Breitbart News. As you know, it's a website that has championed white nationalist themes. And so I asked the president, what message does it send to the country and to the world having a person like Steve Bannon having such a prominent role in your White House? The president didn't want to comment. He said it would be inappropriate for him to comment in the interest of trying to facilitate a smooth transition. He went on to say that the...
Okay, translation, he ain't got no balls, because all black people in America, for the most part, let me back up and say the majority of black people in America that are aware of Breitbart and aware of Steve Bannon, they know that he's a fucking racist, okay? But fucking President Obama, no comment. I mean, as articulate as our president is, he could have couched it in a way basically saying that, yes, Steve Bannon appears to be a supporter of the alternate right, which can or cannot have dramatic negative effects on the interactions between citizens in this country. Hey, I just thought of that one just off the top of my head. He couldn't have said that, and I know he's much more articulate than I am.
Voters have spoken. Donald Trump will be the 45th president, and here's some more of what he had to say.
Those who didn't vote for him have to recognize that that's how democracy works.
That's not true. Democracy is one man, one vote, and the outcome of the vote is what's supposed to reign. We got this fucked up electoral system that doesn't really take into account one man, one vote. It basically is a bastardization of a democratic process, because you could have two small states or two medium-sized states that have electoral votes that equal the size of one large state. The two small states could be won by one vote each. So that would give the winner of those states 2 votes if it was the same person. Meanwhile, you could have the largest state that has 10 times their population voting overwhelmingly for the opposite party. Those 2 small states with their number of electoral votes, okay, would basically be a draw. If you're saying 5 for each smaller state and 10 for the largest state, each of the 5 state electoral votes excuse me, could be won by one single vote. So that means that, let's say, let me be specific about it. I'm rambling. Let's say Clinton, okay, wins New York, and New York has 10 electoral votes, which I know it doesn't, okay, and she wins New York by 1 million votes. But then let's say Kansas has 5 electoral votes and Missouri has 5 electoral votes, and Trump wins each of those states by one single vote. Okay, so he has a net of 2 votes for those 2 states, and she's got 1 million votes as far as New York is concerned. Well, hell, she won the popular count, but basically the 2 small states basically zeroed out the largest state. Let's say one of those states had 6, not 5. He beats her with 11 electoral votes versus 10, but she destroys him with the popular vote. The system is fucked up.
This system operates. When I won, there were a number of people who didn't like me and didn't like what I stood for.
The difference is you won the popular fucking vote.
And, you know, I think that whenever you've got an incoming president of the other side, particularly in a bitter election like this, it takes a while for people to reconcile themselves with that new reality. Hopefully it's a reminder that elections matter and voting counts.
Yeah, it is a reminder that elections matter and voting counts. And you and Clinton basically ignored your fucking base, okay? You ignored your base, or she did, okay? And the consequence of that is you fucking guys lost. And you ignored black people. You took black people for granted, and she took black people for granted, and a segment of them got tired of it. They still voted for her in overwhelming numbers. I believe she received 87% of the black vote, okay? But you got 92. So she was short on your vote count amongst black people, and she was short in the overall vote count because you got 5 million more votes than she did. So now you tell me, who fucked up. You guys, again, ignored your base. You had no fucking message. She's got to be one of the worst speakers and motivators in fucking political history. It was a bad fucking choice, but you deserve a lion's share of the fucking blame, okay? Because if you had done your job and done something for middle America, flyover country, they wouldn't have been as pissed off as they were, and we wouldn't be in the fucking position that we're in right now.
And so, I don't know how many times we have to relearn this lesson, because we ended up having 43% of the country not voting who were eligible to vote. But
yeah, how many times do Democrats have to relearn the lesson? You do not ignore the base. It's the economy, stupid, and when the economy is not working for a large portion of the base, you gotta fucking do something. But I don't know how many more times you guys have to relearn the lesson in your own words. You guys basically said, screw you, the base is quote unquote gonna be there, and then her dumbass decides that she's gonna go after Republican women.
It makes a difference.
So elections matter. That's a message the sort of theme he repeated more than once. And so, Don, we saw a very different tone from the president today in this press conference than we've seen over the last several weeks or longer, of him being on the campaign trail, throwing barbs at Donald Trump, and sometimes speaking in apocalyptic terms about a Trump presidency. Today he was calm, he spoke carefully, he was measured, and at times it almost seemed like he was trying to send a message about how a president should speak, how a president should carry himself. So it was a very, very interesting press conference.
How a president should conduct himself. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, he needed to get off his goddamn knees, okay, and be a man for a change, and just call it the way it is. He doesn't have to use the same language I'm using, but he is fluent enough in the English language to be able to get his point across without being as, I guess, hard language-wise as I've been. This was a fucking crime. I'm just going to be honest with you. This was a crime. It was a crime from start to finish. And like I said, Clinton deserves a lot of the blame. The DNC deserves a lot of the blame because she should have never got there. He deserves a lot of the blame because he didn't take care of business. He was out there dealing with gays, and he was dealing with the Hispanic community, the Latin community, issuing executive orders. Guess what? They didn't step up to the plate for him. So what good did that do? He could have just left things alone, and he probably would have basically neutered a bunch of the alt-right people or the people that felt that immigration was a big issue if he hadn't went out and protected those people, okay? So, I mean, it can go either way. But as far as I'm concerned, this was like a total fuck up from start to finish.